Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us here on a new session here on the Shift Network Sound Healing Summit. We always appreciate having you with us. And our featured guest coming up this time is Amanda Baird. Amanda Baird is a former critical care ER trauma registered nurse who is the founder of the Soul of Yoga Institute and Frontline Sound Healing Training, which offer professional certifications approved by Yoga Alliance and the American Holistic Nurses Association, including a 100-hour sound healing certification program. Amanda's worked with world-renowned sound healers, nurses, music therapists to lead the way for the future in sound wellness and medicine. Her programs have reached thousands of people worldwide, sharing how sound healing can empower each of us and inspire us to share our gifts with the world. Amanda, welcome.
Hi, Alec. It's really nice to be here for the second year in a row. Thanks for having me.
Hey, brilliant. Yeah, I did not interview you last year, but good to have you back, and good to see you again. It's been many years, like over 10, since you attended the 2013 Healing Sounds Intensive.
It has been 10 years. I can't believe it's been 10 years, but it sure has. And that was an incredible experience, those 10 days in Colorado with Jonathan Goldman and Andy and yourself and Joshua. That was phenomenal. I think that really sparked so many of us to go out there and take the lead and start the revolution, an evolution of the revolution.
And since that time, you have really blossomed. And all compliments, congratulations as I salute you on what you've accomplished down there at the Soul of Yoga with your brilliant programs and the impressive faculty and teachers that you've brought together to help create your programs and share your offerings. So we will come back to talk more about that in a minute or two, but to get us rolling, I'm just curious about, back to the origin story, because in your former career as a ER nurse, which I imagine was a very intense environment, tell us how you made the shift from that sort of service into what you're doing now in the realm of sound healing.
Yeah, thank you. So I still am. I'm currently licensed. Also, I'm a trained ER trauma critical care nurse. And I started out in the emergency room, fresh out of nursing school, working night shifts. And when you are a fresh nurse and you work night shift where it's very often short-staffed, you become a very tight-knit family, not only with the coworkers, but with the x-ray department, the doctors, the trauma department, before the hospital services, EMS, and you get really tight. And so much so that I was feeling like if I wasn't there, I was letting my team down. And that went on for years. I was so excited and I loved what I was doing. I really felt like I was helping people and I was giving it my all. Well, it didn't take long, just about 2.5, 3 years, where I hit a burnout limit, where I was starting to have behaviors that were just definitely not like me. I was drinking a lot. I was staying up late, even on my nights off. I just didn't have very good self-care basics to go off of. And so I took a vacation, my first vacation. It was fabulous. And I ended up in Thailand. And I remember being in the hammock, getting ready, like I had just packed up and I sat back in the hammock overlooking the ocean. It was so beautiful. And I just remember thinking to myself, I can't go back. It makes me kind of tear up a little bit. I can feel that stress that I know so many healthcare workers out there are feeling right now. It's like this heart tug that makes you want to go back, but I just couldn't. So I took a break. I called my work and I said, I need an extended vacation. And they understood. So I was granted one. And I just sat in that hammock for about a month, just to unload everything that I had experienced in those 3 years. And I ended up taking a yoga teacher training, something that I thought I could do for myself, which opened up all of my energy centers. And I remember going back to San Diego, which is where I'm from, and I was walking past the same crystal shop that I'd walked past a million times and never went in because, I'm a nurse and I wasn't really into anything woo-woo yet. And I got a ping right here in the center of my forehead, so much so that I put my hand over it and I walked in the store and she had those crystals everywhere, but she had this little tiny room with maybe 5 or 6 crystal bowls in it. And there was this one. And it was Lou in the dance to me, looking at me and talking to me. And I asked her what it was. And she said it was a singing bowl attuned to your third eye chakra. And I just learned what chakras were. So I bought it and I took it home and I played it all the time. Like I was a nut. I'd put my water in it and play it and drink it. I put my salad in it and I'd play it and I'd eat it. And I'm a surfer. So I put it in my backpack and I would paddle out with it and I'd play it on my surfboard and I'd have amazing experiences. Dolphins coming out of the water. All these wildlife would swim up underneath the board. It was really incredible. And it made me feel good. Like for the first time in years, I felt relief. I felt at peace. And I just thought this is something that I have to keep doing. So there was, this was 11, 12 years ago. There really weren't very many books about crystal bowls out there. There was one by Jonathan's, I don't know why her name is. Do you remember her name? Renee Brody. Thank you. There was one book out there about crystal bowls, which of course is out of print now. And I really had to do research. And I found Jonathan Goldman and I went to his 10-day training in Loveland. And that was really where I got inspired, deeply inspired to not only use sound for myself, but get it out there in a large capacity so that more people have the tools of sound at any moment, right? Like we know we don't really need all of this stuff. You have everything you need right here. Jonathan wrote that beautiful book about humming. I love the humming book. So that became a passion of mine. Jonathan and Andy really inspired me to go out there and start to do education. And that's pretty much how I started.
Right on. I love that anecdote. The bowl called to. It's like you were summoned to this sort of work by the power of the bowl. Is that the actual bowl right there, that your first one?
This isn't. It's actually it's right here though. This is my second sound healing temple. But my first bowl, I haven't sold it. It stays with me always. Now it's in the center of a crystal grid in this temple here in Sedona.
Very good. It's still traveling with you. I love it. So, but you also raise an interesting theme, like, how when you started, quality information about sound healing was a little harder to find, as opposed to now there's been an explosion of information and resources out there. And sometimes it can be a little overwhelming, and sometimes the cautionary tale to, there's a lot of misinformation out there that people can latch onto and fall into. So that being said, in your view, based on your personal experiences and the result of all the trainings and interaction with people, what's any advice for people who are just starting on the sound healing path?
Oh man, I have a lot of advice for you, mainly because I went through it, right? I had no training when I started out. And when I bought my first bowl, I went from one bowl to like 30 or 40 in a very short amount of time. I'd say like 3 or 4 months. I ended up with 30 bowls. I needed a lot of healing. And I can give the advice that you don't want to play all of your bowls at once. I've learned that for sure. But when you get your first instrument, or say you already have your instruments, like you've been inspired and you took that action step and you purchased your instruments, I really encourage you to take the time with your instruments, just you and your instruments, one at a time for 10 or 15 minutes a day, so that you can get to learn that instrument. Play it when you're happy, play it when you're sad, play it when you want to be inspired, play it when you want to bring something into your life, play it when you're having a hard time in your relationships or your work, and play it and see how it feels to you. That is going to be the best teacher for you moving forward, sharing sound with others.
That is powerful advice, to just, take it one step at a time and really experience it fully in the laboratory of your own mind, body, spirit. experience, because that's always truth, not necessarily believing something you read on a Facebook post or whatnot. So that's it. Mainly the first step, just really take the steps into the experience of sound and really immersing yourself in it, experiencing and allowing that time for silence and assimilation. Is that a good pattern?
Absolutely. After those 10, 15 minutes, then you have that time to sit in the silence. And that's the mana. That's what we all want. That's when you feel one, when you've already gone through the sound and then you go into the silence. You've done the alignment and now you can go up for that higher consciousness and allow that to come down into this physical world. Absolutely. I love that. That's a great reminder. Make sure that you allow time for assimilation.
Yeah, and that process of sounding and silence, the sound becomes your teacher, like unto your teacher and source of guidance and inspiration for the next step. But in your case, you were called by that particular crystal bowl, but there's many things that people could latch on to. Any other thoughts about how to select instruments or tools to play with?
Absolutely. If there's something that has been calling to your heart from a child, like a lot of people are called to the drums and they thought, oh, I was never able to be a drums, or my parents wouldn't let me have a drum set. Well, now is your time. The drums are a great way to start. You can see this one right behind me. That's a buffalo drum. Those are really inexpensive. They have lots of classes where you can make your own drums. This one is a Rima one. I like these because they're accepted into the hospitals because you can wipe them down. And being a nurse, that's really important to me. So you can actually take these into the hospital and they probably run under $200, give or take a little bit. And that's pretty affordable for a very strong, sturdy, good sounding sound healing tool. If you're not quite sure, though, what you're interested in, I'd say go to some sound healings. Look up sound healings in your local area. You can do that just on Google, or if you're a part of Facebook or social media, you can look up that and go to sound healings. Try the different instruments. There are crystal bowls. There are the metal instruments like the Tibetan bowls and the gongs. I love the therapeutic harp. You can see that behind me, and try it out. There's all sorts of different instruments. I always tell the story about my mother. When I first got into sound healing, I, like so many other sound healers, amassed a lot of instruments at once. And I didn't have any training. So I played, just like most of us, all of my bowls at once. I played them so that I could feel them because I thought that would be the healing level to play them at. But my mother hated my crystal bowls. She felt like they were nails on a chalkboard. I know, right? She felt so bad, but at the same time, she couldn't stand them. It took me at least 3 months of trying different types of sound healing instruments, God bless my mother, on her. And she actually really enjoyed the tuning forks. Very subtle. And now, this many years later, I've realized that more than likely it was the way that I played the crystal bowls. I played them just like so many of us do, in a non-healing manner, right? In an ineffective way, something that felt good to me, but didn't necessarily feel good to other people. And that was another big reason of why I decided to go ahead and put together training programs, because just like everybody else, you want to play them all at once. You have so many, right?
Are there a couple interesting lessons there, just to double down? First of all, since you mentioned Jonathan Goldman, one of his key phrases is that we are all unique vibratory beings, and honoring that what's the sound or frequencies, vibrations that are beautiful and effective for one person may not be the other person's cup of tea. But also that need for, or recommendation for, additional training to help increase your sensitivity and awareness to be an effective practitioner. As much as I'm very into the, as I said earlier, the whole intuitive guidance and following the sound. Yeah, that additional training can have great value. So say a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So 10 or 11 years ago, again, I had no training. So it was me, and I eventually made it into a yoga studio. And that's where I really started to begin sharing sound on a larger scale. Um, but again, I had no training, so I played all of the bowls at once. The other thing is that none of my bowls were tuned. I actually didn't know about something that's very important in sound healing called tuning. So I wanted to make sure that I shared that when I learned about it myself, that I shared it with others. So we cover that in the trainings. So we really talk about playing a few sounds at once rather than overloading, which is what we can do so easily, especially with the crystal bowls. Like, I think crystal bowls are probably one of the hottest instruments out there in sound healing, but the crystal bowls can overload very easily. And if you think about overloading the crystal bowl to the point where it might shatter, imagine what that does to the energetic field of people. Now, I talk about this in my trainings. For personally, what happened to me was I was invited to a friend's Kundalini yoga center. And if you don't know yet, Kundalini people enjoy sound healing very much. They love to chant, but they also love the gongs very much. And so I was invited to this gong bath by the owners, and I went in for, normal Kundalini style. The room was packed, and I was in the back corner. And we had done our breath work where you hold your hands up and you do the breathing. And it was time for the gong. So we had laid down and he started on the gong and he never let up. It was banging on that gong. It felt like an assault. Now, I come from a sexually traumatic background. And I find that the metal instruments, if not played very, very lightly, are extremely triggering to me, which is what happened. I got super triggered. I went back to, the trauma that had happened, and I ended up like this in the back corner, like this. And I was thinking his back was to us. And I was thinking if he had just turned around to look, he would have seen me and maybe have noticed that it was too much. I was too embarrassed to get up and walk out. Finally, after he had finished, I had enough. I was able to gather myself and to leave the room quickly, but I was crying. It was really difficult for me. And again, that just fueled the fire inside of me that knew I can't let that happen to other people. We have to give good education out there for that people are aware that yes, you can create beautiful healing harmony, but you can also destroy and trigger with sound. And that is really one of the main things in our training is to focus on the way that you play, ensuring that you are effective. Because that guy wanted to give his love. He was pounding out everything he had, giving to his community. However, that wasn't the right frequency for me. And I found that has happened quite often in the public, especially with brand new sound healers. And it doesn't take much. There's just a few things that you need to know so that you can become effective.
And I know you do share that in your programs. I believe you even have a section called "What If," addressing that phenomenon of like, what if stuff, intense processing or psychological experiences come up for people during sessions. And we will come back to that in a minute. But let's continue with this theme, because I guess it falls into the category of like mistakes that sound healers make. So for the positive example it may set, would you like to give a little more of a demonstration about what you're talking about in that category?
So we're talking about the 3 biggest mistakes that new sound healers make and how you can avoid them. So the first one is that when you have a lot of instruments, playing all of them at once can be overwhelming. It's exciting, right? But just take a listen. Can you feel that? A little jarring, correct? So rather than play them all at once, we really encourage you to slow down, slow way down. So you're gonna wanna play one bowl at a time to introduce the sound. I like to say, take a nice deep breath in. Long exhale out. Add your second bowl in. Again, remind yourself, take a deep breath in. Long exhale out. And you can bring your next bowl in. That sets the stage for a very nurturing space where people aren't rushed. It's also gently introducing the new sounds to them. Every time you play one of your instruments, you can think of it as a sound wave that comes off of the side of the bowl. Now, if you have a lot of sounds coming off of the side of the bowls, you have a lot of movement with those waves. And in sound healing, our goal is to slow the brain waves down. And you can do that by slowing down your speaking, like I am now, and playing your bowls slower. How does that feel? Nice, right? Okay, so that's number one. And now we know how to alleviate that, right? Number two is playing too loud. Now, if you have your instrument near you, go ahead and grab it. But if you don't, watch what I do, and then when you find your instruments, make sure you practice this. Do this exercise. So you'll take your bowl and you'll want to play it right in front of you. Right? As sound healers, we're above our bowls or our Tibetan bowls. Our drums might be in our hand, or our harp is usually in our lap, so we're above it. So go ahead and play that right in front of you. And then bring your bowl or instrument up to your ear. And then back down. And we'll see if we can do this on there might not be a whole lot of change, but it kind of sounds a little bit like this. Can you hear that difference? Your clients are usually at this level, right? They're laying on the ground and your instruments are around them, or they're close to where your instruments are. If you have someone that is at this level and you're normally used to playing your instruments from above, the sound is significantly different. So it's very easy to want to play very loudly. So I just ask that you do something like this experiment to see just how loud your instruments are. Right? We talked about there being a healing and effective way of playing, and sound, just like that gong was too loud and too much, it can really intensify anything going on for people. So we want to go softer first, right? Another great way to do that is also to teach your friend or a family member how to play your instruments and trade places with them. Someone who is brand new to playing, I guarantee you, will always play too loud. So if you're laying down and they're playing their bowls or their drums or the Tibetan bowls next to you, you'll get a sense for how loud that is. Okay, so that's number 2, and we found out how to reconcile that. And number 3 is that there is no breath in between their playing. It is all sound all the time. So rather than, like we did earlier, play all of my bowls for an entire hour where you're completely just immersed in sound with no breath, and then I continue to play, and maybe I'm a drummer, so here's my drum, and I'm going to bring the drum out now, and I'm going to do this too, right, without any type of pause. I just go right into it, right? We find that with sound and in sound sound healing over the last 10 or 11 years that I've been doing it, I find that works best to help people to get into that very relaxed state where they can receive the sound to the greatest extent, is that there are movements in between. So if I'm playing for an hour, I may play the bowls in a certain way with a certain pattern over maybe a few minutes. And then I let that quiet on its own rather than move on to the more bowls, or sometimes people like the binaural beats, right? Or into another instrument. I like to allow, and we find that it is very nurturing when you allow people to then integrate what they've experienced and have some silence. So I hope that has helped you.
And you've also just teleported through the power of sound. So that's a whole nother workshop. But thank you for that demonstration, those very wise tips. Because, yeah, as you noted, it's just some simple, subtle awarenesses can really make your practice much more effective. And doubling down on that silence. I recall hearing it said once upon a time that silence is the canvas that the musician paints on, and also the sound healer. So allowing that space for things to breathe physically and energetically. Excellent tips. Thank you. So yeah, moving back on, I know there's probably a lot we could say about the frontline sound healer trainings, but maybe I'll just toss it into your lap. What are the most important things you'd like to share here?
Absolutely. The frontline sound healer training, it was an evolution. When we first started the trainings out, I did an 100-hour foundations of sound healing. And that was where we had Joshua and Jonathan Goldman come out. We had Sylvia Nakash, Christine Stevens, Shelley Reef, and it was Dion Mandel and Richard Rudis. So we had really as many instruments in the top of the field that I could find possible for 2 6-day trainings. And in those trainings, we got the foundation, right? We had the science, we had the basics of the voice and the vibration, how sound healing works. We covered all the different instruments, and it was amazing to come together, much like our 10 days in Colorado, but at the end, they got a certification. And we really focused on sharing sound with other people. Now, we did that for 2 years, and then COVID hit in 2020. In California, we went into quarantine, and on the weekend that we were supposed to have one of our trainings. So we did what so many other people did and went right online. We tried to learn everything we could about Zoom, which was quite a navigation. However, people needed it. Everybody was very frightened, and we just really didn't know what to do. There was not a lot of relieving practices that people just had in their pockets. I think for a lot of people that are afraid to go to yoga, they really didn't have anything, to hold on to. So sound for me was like brilliant. So not only did we take our trainings online, but we also started a free Facebook sound healing group called Live and Free Sound Healing Classes. And that's still up and running, and you can still go back and see all of those classes that we offered. I think we did 6 days a week for the entire quarantine. We had those classes available. So out of that blossomed our frontline sound healer training program. And what that is it's a short, quick training that equips you with effective sound healing techniques to take out into your communities. We talked just a little bit about how, as a new sound healer, the mistakes that you can fall into. And so our trainings really help you focus on techniques that'll help you to get that wonderful result that you're looking for when you go to do a sound healing. You want people to feel wonderfully relaxed, uplifted and balanced and inspired. And the techniques that we have are really easy. We base everything off of harmony. I found that if you're a brand new sound healer, rather than having the whole chakra set where it's like C, D, E, F, G, A, B, Sometimes people go, see, and then having to navigate through that, which you might know that not all of those bowls sound good together. And in fact, they create a lot of what we call is dissonance, right? That bounces you together. And more than like 30 seconds to a minute of dissonance can be agitating. So we really focus on teaching our students harmony, and that's fun. It is a blessing when you have a group of, 6 or 7 or 8 bowls and you can play all of them. There's no thinking. It's all the bowls go together. So then you can really let your intuition take over and, let that, which bowl calls to you next as to what bowl to play next, which is exciting. So, we found that just like me, right? When I was a nurse, I hadn't taken any breaks for myself. So we really wanted to make these trainings not just informational, so you can be prepared to go out to the community, but also a wonderful experience for you. So that when you're done for the day of training, our online courses are only 4 hours, so they're super short, so you don't get burnout, and you feel wonderfully uplifted after our drumming training, which is amazing, or any of our harp trainings or our crystal bowl trainings. We just don't have a lot of time. I talk about that a lot. There's a lot of healing that needs to happen. And we need more healers out there that are effective and trained.
I love that perspective. And I imagine that some of that mindset stems back to your roots as an ER nurse, because there it was not theory. It's like, what is effective now, right?
That's right. As an ER nurse, it really helped me to develop these programs. I need something that works right now. Right? In the ER, it's not a long-term program. You have a few hours to fix what's going on. And so I needed to work immediately. I'm an ER nurse, not an ICU nurse, so I need things to be easy and simple. So our trainings are also very easy. These techniques, anybody can do it. All of our instruments are very simple. These are not difficult instruments with just a few little mindfulness techniques and tips. You can play any of these very effectively. And then the third thing is I need it to be reproducible. I need something that's consistent. And these sound healing techniques are consistent. We have tons of scientific studies, and we take those scientific studies from music therapy, right? But like we know that it takes 4 minutes of drumming to entrain to a rhythm. So we talk about those in our trainings, that drum for at least 4 minutes so that you can get the group into a cohesive resonance, right? Everybody's vibing at the same jive. Techniques like that.
Yeah, there's so much to it. The healing, or the art and science of it. So we spoke about intuition earlier. We made a great point. That is ultimately a very powerful channel to tap into, but within the container of training and knowledge, because the eagle flies with both wings, the intuitive and then the rational, informational. So, and harmony, that's crucial too, as much as I always emphasize that at the outset, sound healing is not a musical practice. You don't have to be a trained musician or singer. So that's just very liberating at first. But as you note, if you're getting into playing combinations of instruments, you do need to have some awareness of the rudiments of harmony and how things sound together. So thank you for that.
Well, you don't have to, right? Like there are lots of people out there that are just playing everything at once. And again, that's another reason why I really encourage people to look into the people that they're taking their trainings from. Like right now, you can go on Instagram, you can go on Facebook, and you can pay like $59 and get a certification. I get a lot of students from those types of programs that tell me that I bought my bowls from these people, but they don't sound like yours do. What am I doing wrong? And I have to, and then I look at their bowls, and none of their bowls are tuned. They've got bowls, notes that don't go together, tunings that don't go together. So there are different types of qualities of training. So I really encourage people to do some back research. Read the the comments and call the people. Like, you can call our program at any time and either talk to me or my assistant Rebecca, and you can actually talk to somebody, which I really appreciate these days, right, with all the new AI stuff out there.
Yeah, I'll double down on that. I want to keep it positive and instructive, but I've seen a lot of these ads that have been exploding recently, like you mentioned, become a certified sound healer in 9 days, and there may be some very excellent programs coming out under those banners, but a cautionary tale of, think like your background, the conventional medical profession, to become a licensed professional in any medical capacity. There's exhaustive training and certifications.
Absolutely. It takes 10 years to become a music therapist. 10 years. We don't have that kind of time. Like, I talk about the drumming. There's a scientific study. I'll tell you our training programs. We've got 3 major training programs that are approved by the American Holistic Nurses Association. One is called Integrative Sound Healing, and that's where you learn how to put a class, teach a sound healing in kind of a class version, like a yoga class. So you have so many people come into a sound healing and just lay down. But however, for me, it takes me like a good 20 minutes to relax in order for me to receive that sound healing. So this class really teaches you what to do and to help your clients receive the sound and integrate that. So there's like head massage and tapping. We go over humming. It's a really wonderful course that's taught by WA. We have another course called Rhythms for Healing, and that's with Christine Stevens. Now, this is my effort at helping the issues of school shootings. Up until this last recent one, all shootings were done by young teenage men. This last one was done by a woman who identifies as a male. We have a scientific study out there already that shows us that drumming in a group reduces anger in teenage boys. Right? Like, does that blow your mind? And hopefully make connections. Like, let's get drumming into the schools, like right now. It's not just any drumming, right? We need to have people who are trained to deal with teenage boys. And our program goes over that. Our other training program that's approved by the American Holistic Nurses Association is our therapeutic harp training. If you're a nurse or you're interested in hospice or you're just a healer, we've got harpists that work with the horses that do equine work. It's wonderful work to do with end of life care. The celestial harp is phenomenal. I've worked with that with many patients crossing over. And it's just lovely that the uplifting strings help them go into those higher frequencies and let go of this physical stuff down here. So that just kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what our training programs focus on. I am not a metal instrument person. However, you can take courses. We have approved instructors that you can take your education for gongs and Tibetan bowls, and then still come around and take our courses and get your certificate.
It is impressive what you put together down there. So I salute you once again, because like you said earlier, you do have some quick 4-hour programs to get people inspired and in motion, but that's not the end of it. There's this whole synergy of different offerings that come together to give people a fuller grounding and knowledge base to work with, and experiential base to work with, equally important. And so if people would like to find out more about your courses and offerings, where's the best place to go?
You can find our entire program on www.soulofyoga.com/sound. And that's the entire program. We also have 2 sound healing temples. This is our one in Sedona, and we have one in Encinitas as well. And that is at sacredsoundofthesoul.com. We have over 500 crystal bowls that are all, you can hear them all. They're all recorded on there. And they're just beautiful. I'm really proud of them. And in these temples, we have those sound healing classes that you can get certified to learn and teach. My vision is that we'll have sound healing studios on the corners, just like Starbucks.
That is a great vision. Okay. And that's a beautiful scene behind you there too. And so that's sacredsoundofthesoul.com. That was your crystal bowl.
That's right. Those are the sound healing temples.
Yeah, because back to the experience, like crystal bowls are a trip. Like every one is like a unique being, and no, every set is unique because all of the bowls are slightly different, and the way they combine is slightly different. So, encouraged to go give a listen to the bowls and get into the experience of them. That's the first step in the journey.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I just released my first album with Sylvia Nakash. It's called Deep Listening, and you can listen to that on Spotify, iTunes, Pandora, and I believe it's available for download as well. I'm really excited about that. There are 4 tracks that we recorded, and it's the bowls and voice. And she's also one of our faculty members on our crystal bowl training. So that's an exciting. It's really exciting to have done that. I keep listening to it. I love it. It's very relaxing and nurturing, and it helps me to listen in a different way than before. Every time I listen to the tracks, I hear something different. Different layers of the bowls mixing together, and then how they interact with Sylvia's voice. They're always teaching us. So I invite you to take a listen to that. Deep listening is what it's called.
Well, congratulations on that as well. I was going to ask about that, but you psychically got my question in advance. So congratulations on that album. It's out there with Sylvia, who's brilliant. She's one of your, as you mentioned, one of your instructors. And but also this is a big topic, and we are winding down to our last few minutes. But the skill of the importance of listening in the sound healing realm, not just creating sound with bowls, voice, etc., but the listening perception. Would you like to say a little bit about that?
It's all about listening, isn't it? So we talk about that in our trainings, how, when you get your instrument, practice with it. Go in the bathroom, go in your closet, go in your room, go outside and listen to your bowl. Feel what it sounds like. Practice with it. That way you can become authentic. And when you can hear your bowl, then you can start to hear those higher frequencies that leads you to that higher guidance and those wonderful inspirations that might guide you to take your bowls down to that yoga studio and see if you can't start something wonderful in your community.
So it all interweaves, the personal practice interweaving with the public presentation. And I'm always in that camp of, once again, validating in the laboratory of your own personal experience and being, because that's always truth. So we encourage that, and that's a big part of what you do down there, yes?
Absolutely.
But yet another big topic, but that I'd never heard that fact about the drumming and the benefits of that for reducing aggressions. That's another thing. As much as I'm very into all the new age and speculative things, like how does it help people here now in the real world? And that's a massively interesting thing about reducing violent tendencies.
Absolutely. I hope in the future that we see the largest drum circle in the world at the Super Bowl. Could you imagine 75,000 people drumming together? It's like once you get that rhythm, then the anger and the anguish and the you win, who's going to win? My team's better goes away. I'd like to see what happens after maybe 15 minutes of drumming together.
But would the players just walk off the field? Because a lot of the essence of sports is the polarity of competition,
Right?
win and whatnot. So that's part of the fun in that container. But in violence on the streets, not so much. But yeah. So on that note, but I guess we are winding down to our last few minutes. So do you have any closing thoughts, what you'd like to share about your school and the general healing powers of sound and music in our last few minutes here?
Yes, I'm so grateful for this opportunity. Just the fact that the shift has brought so many different sound healers from around the world to share their knowledge. And so many of us, especially those of us who are younger and, and are following in Jonathan Goldman's and Sylvia Nakash's in their trailblazing journey, I just really ask that, and I'm excited that everyone gives it a shot. I think a lot of people were told that they have no talent, or who are they to use their voice and sing, or they're not good enough to have a crystal bowl. That's old paradigm. Believe in yourself. Give yourself the gift of whatever instrument lights you up from inside and play it and let that guide you. And I promise you, those little inspirations will come. You check in your heart and discern, make sure that it feels good. It's something positive. It's something uplifting, and then take action, inspired action. And that's how you'll get to have 2 temples in 2 different cities, have a huge sound healing training program, and get to meet people from all over the world. We've helped thousands of people now, empowering them with the power of sound. And I encourage you to do the same. Thank you so much, Alex. I appreciate the time that you've given me and spending time learning about our training programs. And thank you to the Shift Network.
Right on. Well, thank you. It is an honored pleasure having you here. And that's a great inspirational message to wrap up on today. And also the variety. And as you noted, like that's what's beautiful about events like this Sound Summit and what you are offering down there, the variety of different voices and perspectives. There's so much going on under the broad banner of sound healing. Like you said, you love the crystal bowls, but for you, metal bowls, not so much. For someone, the gongs and metal bowls will be their thing that really sparks them. So we honor that variety and uniqueness that people can explore and discover in the sound world. And thank you for what you're sharing to help encourage and promote it ongoing. So on that note, as Amanda noted, we thank the Shift once again for providing this platform for these journeys on the sound current. And most importantly, we thank all of you out there listening, because you are appreciated, and thank you for being here. We invite you to come on back, because there's still more to come here on the Shift Network Sound Healing Summit, and we'll see you next time.